What I have in front of me are things called boom whackers. And if you take a look, you'll notice we start with the red, and then orange, yellow, green, violet. It's not exactly the rainbow. But at any rate, you'll notice that these guys get smaller and smaller as they go. And you know what it sort of looks like if you've ever been in a Gothic church or something like that, or what cathedrals, things, those sorts of things. It's like a pipe organ, you know? It's like a pipe organ. It's like, oh my God, and you realize it's a pipe organ. But in this case, we're not going to blow air through it. We're going to push the air out by hitting it. That's why it's called a boom whacker. So if I take this C, these might fall down, we get that note, which comes out of it. Now, what's interesting is, think about it for a second. This guy's shorter, and it's an open tube. This guy's shorter. So therefore, if it's shorter, think about what happens with the wavelength. Think about what's going to happen to the frequency. Think what's going to happen to the pitch. So let's see. You notice it gets higher. Okay. If I go to the E, if I go to this guy, and so on and so forth. And actually, what they have on here, for those of you that are big Sound of Music fans, that's do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. And you can think of me as Julie Andrews. Okay, now, with that, what you notice then is we've got a thing called an octave. And you sit there and say, okay, if I've got an octave, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, 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 you get the octave. So, you go, and there's that octave which happens to be there. So these are boom whackers. They're enabled to get notes and to beat people up all at the same time. So it's a great value to all of us. Now, here's an interesting thing. If I go and I take a cap, instead of being an open tube, it's going to be a closed tube. Now think about that for a second. What kind of wavelength do we have? Let's stop for a second, just take a look at a quick thing. If it's an open tube, two sides are open, and I get that, then that means I'm going to get a standing wave inside, which is like this. You go from a crest to a trough. And so that means the length is 1/2 of a wavelength. But if I cap it, and I get a closed pipe, same length as I had before, now what happens? I'm going from the middle to the crest, which means that's a 1/4 of a wavelength. So this is your classic open, this is your classic closed. Also take a look, when you do get the fundamental frequency for each one of these, if I go and I cap it, well, let's cap it and see what happens. I'm going to start with this guy here, and I'm going to take him as the open. That's the note that I get, okay? So I'm going to take this guy, and for the open, I'm going to I have my open. Go back to my open. There's my open. Now, boom. I'm going to do this, which means that this guy here, remember, the length is 1/2 of a wavelength. So if I want to get the full wavelength, I need two of these guys. Boom. Okay? So now I have a full wavelength because I have a 1/2 a wavelength there, 1/2 a wavelength there for the open. For the closed, though, let's do the closed right here. Once again, I'm going to get this length, which is here, but now it's going to be a closed. And that means that this, the length, is 1/4 wavelength. So in order to get the full wave, I need 4 of these. 2, 3, 4. So there is my full wavelength, quarter. And that's why then, you'll notice as you take a look, if I have this guy on the open, higher note, I come with this guy, lower note. Why? Bigger wavelength, smaller frequency, lower pitch. Okay? Also, last little thing to mention. Remember that octave we had before? This guy, once again, to get its full wavelength, would be this and that. Which, by the way, let's take a look at something real quick. we notice that what this works out to be then, here is, for this bigger guy, there's your half wavelength, right along here. And here is your other half. Half, half. There's your full. And notice, boom, whoa. Those are basically the same. Which means the note I should get from these are basically the same. Pretty close. There's some other things going on, but it's close enough for what we're doing. So that's boom whacker.